So let's go to the shoreline. In my piece, which you can see behind me if you look at me down in the little corner there, you'll notice that my shoreline comes almost down to the bottom of the paper. It stops here, maybe at the 1/3, but if you look, and I'm going to use the cursor here, let's look at the computer screen for a second. If you look where the shoreline, now if you call the shoreline the wet sand ends there at the 1/3 mark. And so if you look over on mine, I even cut that short, and it still works. But I think today what we'll shoot for is the wet sand coming down here. So most of us probably have this, if you see what I'm pointing at, this as our shoreline, as our water. And what we're going to do is we're going to back it up here, even our nice waves and everything. But they'll be easy to put in because you've done it once, you can do it again, right? So, okay, so I'm going to start the class now. And here we are, and we're looking at our shoreline, and we're going to correct this. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with our purple, and I'm going to stop sharing the screen. We're looking at this. So before I do, we're going to fix our shoreline. Okay, then we're going to look at our trees. Now, look at these trees in the photograph over here. And look at, and I'm sorry, I have my my mail turned off, and it still comes in on this side and does weird things. I hope you can't see that, but it's annoying. So this is pretty dark over here, but again, like we said before, this is because of the looking into the sun. So we want that effect, but not quite so much. If we're using plein air eyes, like we're standing right there, this would be a little more green. The camera makes it more contrasty. So we lighten it up a little bit, but not too green, and not too light. Yours could be darker than what I have here, and it would work. And you have it more blue as you get in the distance. Remember, we said that we lose the yellow in colors, and green becomes more blue, and the yellow beach becomes more white. All right. So I want you to check those two things. We're going to start here, and then after we fix this, then we're going to work on this area here. Over here, this triangle here. And then we're going to get this beach back here and get this dark in here. And we're going to get all the background in, and then we'll do our trees. Okay? And then finally what we'll do is this area in here. All right? So we're going to start here, and I'm going to stop sharing the screen. There we are. All right. So, all right. I don't know why it's showing you, Jenna. Interesting. It should be showing my screen. All right. Can you guys see me? Are you seeing me, or are you all seeing Jenna? All right, let's look at the view. You can do camera view up in the right. You can do speaker view. All right. And you can exit the full screen up in the right, play around with that. I'm not quite sure why it's not showing me. Is it showing me for you guys?
Yes.
Yes, good, excellent. Oh, that is because, Laura, I don't have you muted.
I just unmuted me.
Oh, well, if you would mute yourself, that would, unless you have something to say. Peggy, hi, glad you're here. Peggy's also a student that's been with us before. Great, okay. All right, so if you guys can see me, for some reason I'm seeing Laura, but I've got a gallery view now, so I'm seeing there are 9. of us. All right. Starting the class, we are going to cut in on our shoreline over here and fix this. And I'm going to, of course, my students know that purple is a key color. So I'm going to use that. And I'm going to cut in and I'm going to look at my photograph and see where I want to cut. I want to cut, if you look at where the tree is, look at where my tree is. Now I marked that almost a third over. When we first began, you marked yours. And if you look at where the tree is on your photograph, you can see that you need more space. So I'm going to cut back with the purple. And I'm gonna mark it with my fingers so I know what I'm doing on the photograph. And I'm gonna start cutting back. And I'm not thinking about the water right now. I'm thinking about the beach. So what I'm doing is I'm making the beach. And you want to do your strokes so that it kind of goes down. It's in the direction the beach is going. I've got this extra strip over here. Whoops. For a demonstration that just, okay. And I'm wanting it to go in, so the water goes in at about a third of the way up. Mine might be a little high. Okay, now I want the dark beach to get smaller as we go back, and it does a little bit of zigzagging, and then you really can't see it much, but it does all the way back behind that tree. It does, you do see something dark there. So I'm going to make that dark, and where it's really dark, I'm going to take my darker blue. I'm looking for it. I might take this one. Let's see. Yeah, that's pretty good. And I'm going to go back there, back here, way back, and I'm going to make that a little darker. And then where I'm looking at the places where it's dark, see where it comes to a point? It's a little bit higher than where the tree is. But I want the, right now I'm going for the darkness. We can go for the hue, the color in a minute, but right now I'm going for the darkness. And so where it's going to be darker. So now it's a mess, right? Right? Has everybody got a mess? Because we're doing the under painting, undercoating. All right, I'm putting my dark blue over to the side. And now I'm evaluating, where do I want to start? I want to start back here. I think I want to, as long as we're back here, I think I want to get this part right. And I'm going to take my purple again, and I'm actually going to go over my line, but I know where that is. I know where that tree is now. So I'm going to take it over. And do you see where the cliff starts? Right? The cliff starts right about opposite where you've got that little inlet right there. And the cliff starts there. Now, your piece doesn't have to be exactly what this is. Your piece can be your piece. This is just a guideline. And my students know, I love to see your style. I love to see what you do. I'm going to take black and go back here again, because I want that to be dark. And I'm going to go over that with the blue, because it wasn't dark enough. And I'm going to go over that with the purple. And I'm talking about that shoreline back there. Now it begins to look darker. It's not the right color yet, but we've got the darkness, and that's the main thing, that value. Okay, I'm going along underneath my tree line, and I'm not all the way to even with the tree, the bottom of the tree yet. I'm just that far because things change. All right. Now I'm going to see what happens if I take that, this is dirty, you can't even see. I'll show you sometime how to clean these, but I'm just wiping it off with a Kleenex right now. I'm taking my peach on top of the purple in that little spot there, and that's working pretty well. It's not uniform because the color of the beach isn't uniform. I took a little high, so what I'm going to go do is go back in, and this is why we love pastels, right? Because we can correct. We go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So I'm going to correct that top line. Yours, you might have done it perfectly, and you don't need to do this. I'm putting a little black in there. And if that's too dark, I can put a little blue over that, but we want the black underneath so we have that darkness. It distinguishes. Okay, now to me, it looks like kind of, the peach looks like the picture, but the picture, again, is very contrasty because it was a camera. And if we were standing there, that beach would have more color. So I am going to, yes, question?
Yeah, this is Julie. Are you working on the lower beach or are you working on?
I'm working way, way, way back.
I know, but
the upper beach.
The what?
I'm working on the upper beach.
Like the beach is even with the water and then there's a drop off of 3 feet and then there's an upper beach. Are you working on that?
Okay, so I'm working on the beach to the left of the drop off.
Okay, yeah.
The upper.
It's above. It's above the drop.
That little spot right here.
Thank you.
That little spot right there. So, but what I'm going to say is about all of the beach. The beach is going to have more color when you're there. And beach is purples and pinks and peach. And then some blues for contrast, but we'll do that later. So I'm very lightly going in with this. I don't know, can you see the pink? It's that darker pink that you have. Very light, not too much. And if it's too much, then you can go back in with your peach or your purple. And we're just doing that little spot. All right, now I'm gonna continue out with my pink and down, and we're gonna ignore the weeds right now. And notice that it kind of goes straight, maybe up just a hair where those weeds are, but it's kind of straight with this line that we have over here. So I'm gonna raise mine just a little bit. And you can do that on top of the trees. Okay, and mine is pretty pink. So I'm going to go over it with some peach to neutralize it, because that peach has some yellow in it. And I'm using a lot of the peach. I'm using it heavier now. The heavier you are, the whiter it's going to look. And it's going to look more like white than peach, surprisingly. Now, I know where that tree is. And I'm going to be working behind the tree now and covering that up for the moment. And I'm going to be going straight, but maybe just a little down with my strokes because that's what the hill does. And very, very, very light along the edge, but I'm doing it just a little bit along the edge there, and then heavier back here. And so if you do it light and heavy, you get some texture. Can you see this? You get some texture. It just does it itself. You don't have to do little strokes or anything. I was dragging kind of the whole side of this little piece. And it kind of does it itself. And I'm bringing it out above that real dark shoreline. And I'm just kind of making it messy. Real messy. I want it to look flat. So I'm making my strokes kind of flat. And as we get toward the shoreline, they go down just very slightly, not a lot. And then as you get a little back from the beach, it goes down more. And we're not going to worry about the rest of the shoreline. We're going to be coming down. We work from the top down. Okay, we'll do the rest of the shoreline later. What we did before was just cut in. All right, and I'm going to come closer now to where my tree is going to go. All right, now before we put in our big shadows for our cliff, well, we could do that. And give it a little form. So what I used in my painting was, I don't know, your hands are dirty probably now and everything, but remind me to tell you, was this great eggplant color by Mount Vision Pastels. It's a soft pastel. They're a little fatter than Rembrandt's, softer, and it's number 515. And it's just this darker purple. It's not, doesn't have as much red in it. I'm not going to use it today because that's not what you have. But I recommend that if you can write down if you have a little piece of paper somewhere or something, or you can ask me at the end and I'll tell you again. But it's Mount Vision and it's 515 and it's a wonderful color. You will use a lot. All right. And that's what I used. It didn't have so much red in it. All right. So we're going to go put in our hill. And what I used for that was an indigo blue. I used indigo blue. But we don't have that. We have this cornflower blue. So if you can find that, we're going to use the combination. Indigo is a cross between blue and purple. So we're going to use this in purple. And if we don't have it dark enough, we'll use a little of the dark blue. I'm going to take it on its side because I find that it's better to let the pastel do it naturally than me trying to make it look a certain way. We know that we want this to be chunky. We know that we want it to come down to not quite where the little tree starts, which on mine, I can still see it's going to be right about there. You might want to mark yours where your little tree is going to start because that's definitely a landmark in this one. So what I'm going to do is take my pastel on its side and I'm looking at the angle that's coming toward me. And of course it's getting wider as it comes toward me. I'm looking at the shadow. It goes all the way back to the trees. And do you see all those little, if you look at your photograph, see all those little white lines going up? Those are flagpoles in front of everybody's house. There are like 7 flagpoles. We're not going to put those in. Okay, so we are going back to this point, which is to the left of your tree. That's where it starts. It's gonna slash through, And just for shape, I'm gonna make that line so I know what I'm doing. I'm just making that line on the side, and I'm gonna correct it and go back and forth until I've got it where I want it. And now I'm gonna start up and down, kind of on an angle. It's too light, and gonna take it about that far. Okay, so at least we have a place for it. If you don't like where it is, you can fix it. All right, and I have to eat a little glucose because that seems to be a problem. So pardon me while I do this. All right, not diabetic, I'm low in sugar, turns out. All right, I'm going to take my dark blue. And I'm going to go over that. I'm going to try to do it on its side to see what that does. Just drag it down just a hair and see if I can get that effect. And when you drag it down, do it a little bit on an angle, just a little bit, because that ledge is on an angle. And remember, we're going to go back in with purple. And we're going to cut into it with the peach and everything. We'll have it looking good. All right. Now I'm going to take the purple, not too heavily. Just put it in there, and the purple makes it. Just, and not evenly. And now above, so it looks like this. It's okay. You might want to put a little blue over the purple because those shadows really are blue. But now we have a nice base. All right. Now the weeds, when you do weeds, you got to figure what's underneath, and you got to do what's underneath first. And then you do the light colored stuff on top that you see. But if you don't put what's underneath in, then it's just going to look kind of uninteresting and without depth. So what I'm going to do is even though I've got the sand there, that's what's underneath this, what I'm going to put in. So if you look at those weeds way back there, that little, and the reason I'm spending so much time on this spot is it's going to give you practice for what's coming up here. Okay, we're going to be using the same techniques. All right. So if you look at what's underneath those weeds, and it's dark, right? And if we're going to get dark, we're going to use our purple and our blue. All right. So even though you've got the peach there, this is what I do. This is because you want some of the peach showing through, right? You can see that. So you're going to make these little tiny marks about halfway back on your ledge there, that shelf that you've just created. You're going to make these little tiny marks, okay? And it's going to come down. And it's kind of going to go into your tree line there. Okay. Then let's see. Let's see what happens with a little bit of pink. Just a few marks. And notice how just little dots, just little, notice how that gives it texture. If it's too much, go back. Go back. Okay. And it's a little bit too much color. So now go with your dark blue lightly, with a light touch. Now you've got it dark. Now it might be too dark, so then you go in with your peach to get a little bit of the beach. Especially at the top. If you look at the top, there's a little more beach there at the top. Okay. Now, what color are we going to do those those weeds with? Well, they're kind of nondescript, and I don't do nondescript. So I'm going to use, let's see what I use. I've got the real live painting right here. Can you see this? So we're working back here, and I used some rusts, and I used a little bit of red, and I brought that right along there, and that was it, like nothing. So let's find some rust. Find a color in your treasure trove there that's like a rust. I see a dark red, maybe, or a rust, kind of a, and so a little bit of that. And that's pretty red, so I'm gonna get some orange, because red and orange makes rust. Actually, I did find a different one that's more rusty. Let's see. Yeah. And a little orange. We don't want this to stand out because it's in the background. Little tiny marks. Now, I've got this orange, and we've got all the darks in, and this orange is going to be key. But little tiny marks going up, going from the bottom up, start behind and go from the bottom up. Not too many. And that's enough. Okay? If you don't like your shadow, put some more darks in, dark blue. And if you want some of that snow back there, you can, I'm gonna use, yeah, I would use light blue. And then finally, on top of the light blue, if you want a little bit of white, actually, to lighten it up. White, hardly, or off-white, just a line or two, just a couple of lines, not much. All right, we can come back and make that look gorgeous later, but we're gonna move on. All right. Now, we're not gonna worry about the railing. I did put that in later. You can put it in if you want. I'm not going to worry right now about that structure. I did put that in. I'll show you. I put that in a lot later, at the very end, after I had everything else in. And then I put a couple of weeds in front of it. But right now what we're going to do is put in a little bit of land back here. Just flat, dark blue. And then we're going to put some little bit of snow because it's the end of winter. Thank God. And on top of my blue, I'm going to put a little bit of white. All right, moving forward. Now, look at what's happening here. All the way across where the little tree is, we need to get that structure in so we're not dancing around it. We need to do that now. So we're going to take the dark blue. Well, it's actually so dark I would go black and then put the blue over it. So I'm going to take my black and I'm going to map out where I want it to be. have no fear. Okay, just down here, it's really dark, right around the base of the tree. And I'm gonna make some strokes going up and down, and then it kind of glides away to nothing. And it does move upward to the left. And if I'm looking at the picture and following that line, does move up not quite to the trees. All right. Now immediately I'm going to go over that with my blue, see where we're at. Terrible use of prepositions. As a writer, I know better. I can't stand it when people say, where are you at? And I just did it. See where we're at. So there. Keeps me humble. All right. So now I see where I am. I see, don't worry that it's ugly right now. That's okay. We can fix that. Okay, but now I see where I am because we were top down. Our main focus is back here where the trees are. All right, and I am going to take my purple and start filling in back here. And I'm going to bring my purple down because I know that in front of that black, I'm going to want that bright place. And that's all I'm going to do right now. Actually, no. I'm going to keep going with my purple. And the big tree is going to be about a third of the way in. Maybe not quite. So the big tree is going to be right about here. And I'm going to come in with this purple because I need that dark. We may actually go into our third lesson with this. A third lesson. And if so, I would do it tomorrow and I'll put it up on Zoom so you can, or on YouTube so that you can get it. And by the way, my all my classes are going to be available on my website, lindaaliceDewey.com, and I changed the name of my gallery page to Classes and Gallery. So you can click on the free ones. You can, and when you click on lesson 1 from last Wednesday, in the instructions or more information, there's a link to the materials class that you can go and see. All right, now all this should be going up, 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 up because it's getting closer. Even though the trees came down, down, down. All right, and as long as we're doing that, let's get our dark blue. And let's put in the shadow. So we're blocking things in right now. Okay, we're not doing anything else. And you know, you're going to have your weeds are going to cover up a lot of the trees here, and then we're going to have our other trees coming up. But for right now, we're just blocking in so we know where we're going. Because right now we don't know where we're going. And for me, the biggest thing compositionally, as you're looking at your photograph, is I'm pointing now to this C here. This is part of the composition that's so crucial, is this C here, and then it also goes back here. So we want to make sure that we keep that line. So this goes up, but then it just comes back in this. So we want to see where that is. So right now I'm going to take my blue and that shadow, and I'm doing the shadow that's up on the hill. I'm not doing the shadow on the sand yet because I'm doing structure right now. And if you notice the edge, the bottom of that little cliff comes all the way down, and it almost pretty much goes to the corner. So I want mine to go down and to the corners. So I am just going to, eyes going up to the picture, down to my painting, up to the picture, down to the painting. I'm going to mimic that all the way down there. And if I don't have it exactly where I want it, I'm going to go back and do it again until I have it kind of the way I want it. Takes courage, right? Cowardly lion. Got to have courage. All right. So now, fortunately, we have our black mark, and that's going to come up a little bit. And then we have some dark weeds that are going to be up here, and I've still got that blue. And I'm just masking out where, blocking out where this is going to be. And then it comes down. I'm looking up at my picture, looking down, looking up at my photograph and looking down. So your eyes can be doing the same thing as you're listening. So looking up and looking down. And now I've got the hill right by the big tree, just blocked in. And now, since it's in my hand, I'm going to block, I'm going to leave that little space where there's lightness, well, a little bit, because there's darkness. And the wonderful thing is you can put light over dark. So, and I'm going to block in the rest of this hill. And notice the top of the hill kind of goes not straight, but it kind of goes straighter than the bottom. And your strokes are going to be kind of on an angle because that's what's going to give you the feeling of the hill. And since I've got it in my hand, this blue, I'm going to go up above this huge thing that I just made. And I noticed that this blue is, these shadows are kind of going sideways like that up to my trees. So I'm going to put those in right now. Just, it's not the end all of the spot, but it's just marking it. So we know where it is. Because if you don't have structure, then you don't know where you're going or what you're doing. Okay, now I can go back to this little spot we were doing and I can bring it forward. Since we're not, right now anyway, we're not doing the railing and that kind of thing, we can bring this forward and then have it do a little thing there. And we could put a path in if we want. That'd be easy. With the peach, I know, easy for you to say, but it'd be easy for you too. All right, and then I'm going to put in, so I'm back in our little corner next to our weeds, and my weeds, I don't know about yours, my weeds are a little bit too high. So I'm gonna fix those later on. What I'm gonna do, well, I'll fix them now. What I'm gonna do is take my tree color and come down, up and down strokes like my tree was. Oh, that's too light. It's a dark turquoise I was using. Oh, heck. Give me a minute. This is not gonna work. Dark turquoise. Well, in my Rembrandts, I'm going to use a dark green. I'm going to come down and cut in a little bit. And that works. Then I'm going to pull that color, since it's new to my painting, I'm going to pull that color through so that we have continuity. It's a little greener than what I want, but it's going to be fine. Not a big deal. All right. There are all kinds of little cheating tips. Oh, you can't make a mistake in pastels. All right. You guys, we're all the same. I'm no better at this than any one of you. I've just been making a lot more mistakes a lot longer and learning how to fix them. So I'll give you my tips, and you'll develop your own tricks. So I'm going to take my peach back here, and I'm going to bring that sandy area forward, and there's that little path down. I'm going to come down with it, and I'm going to come over my, and it's pretty level behind. It's pretty level until we get to the cliff. So you can play with that. You can put snow where you want. You can use light blue, which is kind of the opposite of peach, to add a little bit of contrast. You want to always use complementary colors. So I've got the light blue, I've got the peach, those are complementary colors, same value pretty much. When you use your complementary colors, you want to use the same value. Darkness, lightness. All right, and moving forward, okay, so now that we've come forward that much, let's get this part right so that we like it. How are we doing on time? How are we doing on time? About 5 minutes, and we'll take a 5-minute break, okay? Let's come forward here and get this part done in the next 5 minutes. How's that? All right, so I'm going to take my purple over my blue on my cliff back here before we get to the little tree. And I'm going to take a look at other blues. I kind of like the cornflower blue a little bit. And play around with different colors until I find what works for me. Try different things. Just keep trying until you find a combination that works for you on your painting. And then I'm going to work down onto the beach with my peach, and I'm working back into the cliff over some of the blue, because the light is going to come through like that, and that gives it a really nice touch. Same thing above. You'll find that sometimes the pastel does the job for you. I don't like my white back here because it looks like waves. So I'm going to cut into it with some light blue. Cut into it kind of on an angle. So when you see something you don't like, just go and fix it. Use something else on it. Experiment. So when you do your beach, if you don't do it too heavily with the peach, and you let that underneath color, with the dark colors underneath come through, it gives it this texture that's just awesome, and you don't even have to work at it, it just does it itself. So I'm going to go to the shoreline back here next to the tree, the little tree, and where the little tree is going to be. And I am going to put in some darks, because you got to have the darks under the lights. Basically neutral dark blues. I'm cheating. I'm using a soft dark blue that I have that's not too bright. If you look for if you have Rembrandts, I think there's a dark blue that's really good for that. Yeah. Oh, there's a Rembrandt dark blue that'll work. and I'm making little sideways marks because the stones and the movement is toward the water, and it's kind of down. And it stays darker towards the shoreline until that disappears. And I'm going to use light blue now on my stones along the shore. Just a little, just a touch here and there, not much, because we don't want it to look like water. That's coming. And I'm going to use my peach along the stones, just little, I'm using the side a little bit, kind of dotting heavier where it's lighter. I mean, we think they're white, but they're not. They're just light. And they're different colors. I'm just dotting and I'm further away. Okay, further away from the water. And so some of that detritus, that the weeds and the stuff that comes up is a darker, more of a dark red. So I'm going to put a little dark red in there along the shoreline, just especially towards where the wet sand is, and I'm doing it with a sideways stroke, kind of like you're coloring with a crayon. And that's really going to give you, on top of everything else, this dark, and I'm doing it a little bit at an angle towards the shoreline, so down to the left, just barely. And as I get closer, I'm moving down, and I'm liking this so much, I'm going to cut in to my water down here with that a little bit. And it's 1 o'clock. We're going to take a 5-minute break. I'm going to get a drink of water. Everybody needs to get away from their easel for 5 minutes. You need to get away from looking at it so much. You'll come back with new eyes. When you clean your hands, those of you that haven't done with me before, use a wipe first before you take it to the sink. It'll save cleaning the sink. It will save the water as well. So we all need to get up, walk away, don't even look at it. No cheating. See you in 5. so sorry. Okay, I'm back. Getting into my spot here. I have to crawl between. I've got this computer as close as I can get it and still fit my chair in between the easel and let me make sure I've got this straight. There we go. That's better. Okay, that's even better. I had to move it to get out. I'm trapped. It's as close as I can get it, you guys. I will work on cameras and all those good things as time goes by. All right. Let's work up on the left, and then we'll keep moving down. And before we go much further, we are going to put in our trees. Okay. So we're going to work on the what's at the base of the trees here. Actually, I think it's time. It's time. It's so scary. Okay, it's time to put in our trees. So you're going to start with black. And you're not going to draw them in, you're going to paint them in. If you were drawing, you would use the tip and we always, when we do trees like this, deciduous trees, you work from the bottom up, the way they grow. Otherwise, if you work from the top down, they always look choppy at the top. So you work from the bottom up and you lift off on your stroke when you get to the top. So the first one, really go slowly, but then lift off at the top. So let's start with a little tree, and it does go all the way up, so I'm going to have to do something about this. There we go. I know you can't see it now, but and hopefully it won't fall over. So you're going to take your black, and you're going to start at the base of where you want your little tree to be. Now, you're going to take the black new pastel, and you're going to use the edge, the long edge, and right on the edge. You're going to use the whole side of it, and you're going to place it where you want your tree to go. I'm going to move mine in a little bit. Not too much though, because we don't want to get to the halfway mark. We want that rule of thirds. We want it at the third, so everything else is going to have to move. Now, I have got to make sure that I've got it straight up and down, because that little tree is pretty straight. It does make a slight curve to the left, so I'm going to start at the base where I want it, and I'm pushing hard, and I'm holding onto my easel. And I'm pushing hard, and my eyes are going back and forth between my photograph and my painting. And I'm moving up, and I'm moving straight up, and I'm above the trees now, and a little bit to the left, and then a little bit to the right, and now it's thinner, so I'm lighter, I'm lighter, I'm lighter, I'm lighter, and I'm lifting off. Okay, not as straight as I wanted it to be. So what I'm going to do, and this always happens, I'm going to correct it by going, mine is leaning to the left too much from the bottom. So I'm going to straighten it up by going a little bit to the right. Now that I've got a line, I can color from the bottom up, and I'm using little strokes, and my eye is going back and forth, and I'm using that as a guideline, and I'm going to come in to correct that. And since I'm on that line, I'm going to go along the line and go off to the side a little bit and lift off. Not quite as high as the first one. Okay, now I'm going to go in the middle and trace along until I get close to the top, and I'm going to lift off to the other side and come off like that. And I'm only going to do this on the main ones with the black. So if you look up there and you start in the middle of your trunk now and you trace along up, there's a point where it all kind of splits apart, and I'm going to go up and off. And if it's not quite regular, that's great. Because if it's too perfect, we don't want that. Nature is not perfect. Okay, and I'm going to go off to the other side. Do that. Now I'm going to get down here, going out. And now I'm going to get about halfway down and get that one big branch, starting at the center, going, veering out. And it's okay that it's skipped. And I'm going to start at the center, trace along that same branch. And now I'm going to go upward, lift out. And I'm going to trace along the center, and I'm going to go upward, and I'm going to lift off the other way. And for balance, I'm going to go up the center of my trunk and go off that way. I'm going to let you do that for a couple of minutes while I get my dark blue. My tree is not exactly that tree. That's fine, as long as it looks like a tree. That's all I care about. Here's my dark blue. Been looking for you. You don't want it to be perfect. Not too many black ones. All right, I have my dark blue. Because this tree is not going to be black, we're going to use blue, we're going to use purple, we're going to use a few things. So I'm going to trace my trunk going up the middle, pretty much all the way up along my first black one, and then I'm going to go off a little bit to the side. And I'm going to do the same thing now, starting halfway up, almost all the way to the top where I was a minute ago, and I'm going to go off to the other side and lift off. And if it doesn't connect, don't make it connect, it's okay. I got a little. All right, and I'm going to do this a lot now. I did it too much before, and I had to go in with light blue. I'm going to do this on every tree branch with this blue, because if you look at your photograph, you'll see that there are lots of blue branches there, and they don't even look like they're blue. But when you get up close, that is the color that they are. So we're going to use this blue a lot. And like I say, you can't make a mistake. Just doesn't happen with pastels. And you don't have to start all the way down, but it is nice with the black. If you have more than one color on top of each other, it doesn't look as drawn. It begins to look more painted. And that is the key. And it doesn't have to be all the way up. You can start in the middle and just do dotted lines along the black, and that will make it look realistic too. And I'm just going in, and but again, I'm looking at my photograph and seeing how do those branches behave? How do they move? And it's a nice movement. It's a cottonwood tree, and we pruned it. So if you wanted to do it all the way down, you could, but then you wouldn't be able to see the beach, which is why we pruned it. And it's gone now. This was its swan song. It died this week. And lifting off on every one. Now you can fill in that spot. If you have a spot where the black didn't connect, you can fill in with the blue. So it's not all one color. Each line, it can be different colors. You can go over the black. Maybe there are some places where it needs to be darker. But notice the tips get lighter and lighter as far as pressure goes. Now don't fill in too much because we're still going to do some purple, of course. And my eye is going back and forth and back and forth from the photograph to my painting. I don't get stuck. I don't get tunnel vision on my painting. And notice how, as you get up higher, the colors do adjust a little bit to more of a brownish. So towards the lake, well, on the outside, they are really blue. And to get that brownish, you might want to take that dark red, just a little touch here and there. We'll do that in a minute together. And notice how some of the smaller branches, as you offshoot, have branches offshooting of those. So you can do a few, but don't get carried away. And again, it doesn't have to connect, and you don't have to do every branch. What you want is the effect of the branches, and they don't all have to connect. They can be out there and the eye will connect it. And notice how at the tips spread out into several. So your original black tips can spread out. And as you're doing this, you start to get caught up in the minutiae, and you want to check back and look at the whole shape of your tree. And I'm not real happy with mine, so I'm gonna put in a couple of extras down below. And my extras down below, I didn't do black, and you really need that. So I'm gonna have to go back in. Remember, you can go back and forth. All right. So then you take your purple and go lightly on top of some of these as you get towards the top. Just a little touch here and there, not long lines, but the little ones for sure, very lightly, very thin. If it's too thick, you can go back in with your sky color, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Because I got some that go real lightly with the purple. And you want to take the purple and go on top of your black all the way down. All the way down. And then go on top of the black on some of the bigger branches at the bottom towards with the purple. But you don't have to carry it all the way out to the end of your branch. And that purple will give you a sense of the brown that you would think, but it's not. Surprise, surprise. So I'm taking my purple and I'm doing kind of actually a little heavier. All right, so you can play around with that with different blue. Let's see what cornflower blue does. Cornflower blue is awesome on the outer branches. You just add it beginning, and this is what I call the cornflower blue. Just on the outer branches. And look what I'm doing. Look at this, guys. This is where you can start to go crazy and might do a little too much, but it's kind of fun. And so now you're just filling in with this cornflower blue. This is where it gets really artsy and artistic. Okay. And I really like the cornflower blue. Okay, now look at your little tree. Take your cornflower blue. Oh, notice in the photograph that the outside edges of the tree trunk are lighter, and especially as we get up here. So what we're going to do is, let me try it for you first. I'm going to do it with the cornflower blue and see if that's the one I kind of think it will be. Yep. So take your cornflower blue along your main trunk on the outside. I'm using a corner. I'm using a very thin line on the outside, both sides. And it gives it that light, because the light is coming from behind and it's coming around. And if you can do that, it gives it a sense of being a little bit more rounded. And that's also why you might want a little more cornflower blue on your left branches, your main ones, on the left side, because the sun is coming from back in the upper left-hand corner, up above that. That's where the sun's coming from. So your tree, if you go up along your big branches with the cornflower blue, with just the corner of it, just on the sides of your big branches, it'll give it that sense of light, especially as you get to the top ones. All right. And if you don't like it, if you got too dark, if you got too thick, you take your sky blue and you go in the opposite way. Go in from the outside and cut it up. or you can go from the inside and cut it up with your sky blue. And actually you can put branches in with your sky blue and it will cut that up and make it look amazing. It's an amazing technique. It's called negative painting. You're painting negative space. Negative space means you're not painting the tree, you're painting what's around the tree, the sky around the tree. And I'm going up at the top where it's too thick, and I'm going in with my sky blue, and I'm doing it as if I'm doing branches. And it's doing it. And now I am going from the inside out, from the inside out. I'll tell you why. Because the pastel picks up the last color that it touched. If you go from the outside in, the first one's going to be good, but then you touch something dark. And when you go back outside, that dark is going to be on that pastel and it's going to come off, and then you're going to have to clean it up. All right, so I'm going through and I'm just wildly going through now. I'm not being careful at all. This is where you can relax and be artistic, and it doesn't have to be tedious. You can break up, look how that breaks us up over here. You see that? I'm going to break this up here. I'm going to break this up over here. And that's when it really begins to, breaking all this up. That's when it really begins and going up to look like a painting. Now the thing is, the black smears more than the other colors, so you may have to go in more with that blue and clean up around it, but you can. That's why we love pastels. Now, if you really want to have fun, you can go in with that dark pink, just a little bit here and there, just very lightly. But you'll notice I do this in a lot of my paintings, where it looks a little dull. Just doll it up a little. Just a little, just a touch here and there. In the branches. Okay, now let me try this for you first before you do it. I'm going to try this kind of a peachy orange and see, because a lot of times orange will be sunlight. Yep. Okay, and we're going to have more sunlight towards the top. Not too much, just a little, just a little. More towards the top. Now, if you don't like that, you can go over it with something else. And a little more towards the left than the right, because there's more sunlight. While I have the orange, I'm just testing to see if I like it on my beach. And if I do, I'll put a little bit there. Maybe I'll cut up my, my weeds a little bit with that light orange back here. And I like that a lot. So when you have something, I like that a lot. Look how that just did that. And I have found that a little bit of orange in the green part of the trees, just where the lighter part is, down at the bottom, just a little bit. And that, I'm just doing little squiggly, little, that gives you the feeling of bushes and weeds and things like that. Just a little bit of this on top of the bottom, whoops, of your trees. As we get a little closer, you might want to put some weeds in. I've got the orange now. And we are going to use this orange over here in a minute. Now it's starting to look like a painting. The little tree is really fun. You can fool around more with that later. All right, now we're going to put in the big tree. the mama. This whole third of the painting is going to be that big tree. So the biggest trunk is not going to be on the third line. It's going to be in from it, and it's at the top of this hill. It doesn't go down into the hill too much. Usually a tree will go into the hill. And so stay with me here and get your black. And you know where a third is. I'm not even doing it all the way over to a third. A third would be about here. That's a little bit too much for me. I think I want my first trunk to be here. I'm not going to put any of the trunks in until I get the mama, the big one, in. So I think I want mine to be about here. And my eye is going back and forth, and I've got it on its side, and it goes up, and I'm pressing hard. And at the top, it kind of veers off. All right, and now I'm going to, because it's a thicker trunk, I'm going to do it again right next to it. And at the top, I'm going to veer the other way. We go from the bottom up. And because it's thicker, I'm going to do it again. And now I'm kind of going up and down, and I'm going to split off near the top, but not as far up, and then go up because I see that guy doing that. To balance that split, it needs to be thicker down here, so I'm going to move over again, and I'm going to go up, and I'm going to join with that. Doesn't look like much, does it? If you were judging your painting right now, you would say, I hate that tree, right? But you've already seen this process work. All right, now you know what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my black, and I'm going to go up from the middle, and I'm going to go use not the whole side. I'm going to use the tip. I'm going to go up from the middle, and I'm going to veer out. And my eye is going up all the time. And a lot of this is into the sun. So a lot of this isn't really black. So I'm gonna go to the right on the side. Oh boy, that got really thick. So I'm gonna have to go in and cut that up later. And I'm going to draw in the rest. Not too many, but just to get the shape. Okay, that's enough for now. Now we're going to do the other ones. I'm going to go to the left. This one leans away. And because this composition works, I'm going to keep it leaning away. Even though it's leaning out of the picture, normally you have things going in towards the center. This one leans away and it works. So I'm going to start, it starts, if you notice, look at this. It starts lower a little bit than this one, right? So it's a little bit closer. So I'm going to go to the side and go down just a hair. And I'm going to, on its side, I'm going to take it up. And I'm going to go on the edge as I get towards the top because I don't want it too thick. And then I'm going to thicken it and go off the other way. And I'm going to thicken it just a little bit more and go off again and lifting off, lift off. And maybe this. Mine leans a little more than that one, but that's okay. That's what makes it mine. So those of you that are my, yes, oh, Lori, oh my gosh, how did you get in? You know what I was thinking? I'm going to unmute you. You're muted. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you're here. So I was thinking, Lori couldn't get in before. What did you do that made it work? Lori?
I have no idea.
Okay, so from now on,
Trying.
okay, I'm so glad you made it. So from now on, it'll invite you to pre-register. And also it will invite you to accept the meeting, and that puts it on your Google Calendar. And if you do those two things, I'm pretty sure you'll get in.
I did
But,
those, I did those things.
oh, well,
I
heck,
don't know,
then I'm not sure of anything.
me either.
I'm really glad you're here. You're speaking, and just so that you know, you're going to be part of this video when it goes public. I hope you don't mind.
No makeup.
There we go. There we go. Yep. Did you see that meme about Zoom meetings? Zoom meetings when it's just audio and and then when it's video, you're all, you know. Okay, I'm going to mute you because I'm so glad you made it. I'm so sorry you had so much trouble. I will send the link to this whole thing later. I'm going to mute you only because of feedback. Okay. All right. So here we are, and you guys probably read my mind, and I'm going to go ahead and put in a smaller tree here, going up along the side, and the main branch goes off to the side. And now I'm using the tip, and I'm going to make it a little thicker. And my eye is going up. I'm looking at what it's doing, and I'm going to do that. And I'm going to make it a little thicker down here. And now I'm going to do the fourth one. They say compositionally never to do things in even numbers, always odd numbers. But if you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we have odd numbers. So isn't that amazing? A lot of these compositional things, you don't even think about. You just think, oh, that looks good, and you do it, and then afterwards somebody else analyzes it and tells you all the things you did. That's kind of what happened this time. You just know it looks good. And again, it doesn't have to look, and mine went too low, right? But that's okay because we're going to cover some of that up with the weeds. So my philosophy about realism and having it look exactly like the photograph is a guide. There are things in the photograph that make it work, right? But then you take off, like Peggy is really good at taking off on her own, and a lot of you are. Actually, I'm looking at your faces, a lot of you do it. What's the point of having an artist if it's going to look just like the photograph? You already got the photograph, right? So make it your own, and don't make it look like mine. I mean, not that I'm going to slap your hand or anything if it does, but it's okay that yours looks like yours and not like mine. Okay, and Lori, there's no reason, if you did lesson 1, there's no reason that you can't be doing the trees with us if you want to. I'm using black right now, and then we're going to use the darkest blue, and then the cornflower blue, and purple, and pink and orange, and we're going to have fun. Okay, so now you guys know what to do. Now I'm going to go in with my dark blue because this tree, these trees here, are closer to where the sun is coming through. It's going to get, I actually, in mine, here's the one that I did. I actually wanted the sunlight to show. So I did all of our colors that we're doing now. I even outlined with a little pink, and I did more colors up here. I even brought the peach in, and I made it lighter right here because I wanted that sense of the sunlight coming through there. So I actually lightened that up. So we're going to work on our branches, and with the branches, Lori, we come up from the middle, and then we go out, and then we go out and go out. And we're all doing branches now. And you go from the center branch and you go out, and then you lift off. Lift off. So I just did mine on the side, and because the big one really encroaches with its branches into it, I didn't put very many branches on. Now, this big one is gonna, the offshoots, you start in the center of your branch and then you go up and you create those. And it's gonna run into the other one because Mother Nature's messy. So we get to be messy. She's the artist. And if we're gonna imitate Mother Nature, then we have to be messy. So I'm going in all around my big branches with my blue, and I'm taking my blue and I'm going up the trunks on top of the black, okay? So I'm not leaving them black because, again, we're looking into the light. So anything that's black over here, I'm gonna go over with my blue, right on top of it. And if it gets too light at the bottom so you can't see it behind, with those trees behind, then bring more black in, right? So you keep working back and forth, back and forth. Just trace right over those. So you can trace right over your black and then go off to the side. And remember, when you're doing your dark colors, all you're doing is foundation. It doesn't really get fun until you do the light colors. Yeah, I'm thinking the bottom of this one over here, I can't see enough. So I'm gonna make the trunk a little bit darker on the outside, but you know what? If you look at that tree, it's got a lighter blue going up the middle. I'm looking at this outside one. It's got a lighter blue going up the middle of it because of the light. So I'm gonna see what that looks like. If I take, I'm gonna do the cornflower blue. I'll report back. Yep. The cornflower blue in the middle of the black is what you want for the lighter parts of the trunk. So do you see how that did that? I still am leaving the black lines on either side, but I went right up the middle. So I'm going to do that with, I'm taking the cornflower blue with my middle trunk. Do you guys see how this is all just experimenting? I mean, really, you just play around with the colors until you find what works. I mean, I'm experimenting again, right? Because the colors I was using the other day were from my whole collection, and now I'm working with what you've got. So it's a whole different deal. Just as good. And that cornflower blue on top of the black is pretty awesome. The other thing you'll notice is that different pigments have different density, different hardness. Like your dark blue is really hard and your black is really hard. The cornflower blue comes off easier. It's softer, right? Different. These are real pigments that you're using. This isn't chalk. Chalk doesn't have real pigments in it. Anybody ever asked you the difference? That's the first difference. We'll say, oh, you mean chalk? Well, it's a dry medium, but it's not chalk. Okay, so we still, when we do the branches, we still need the dark blue. The light blue is not enough. Remember, you have a branch come up and then you have little ones. You go up along, trace along, and then you have little one, it branches out. Each branch branches out into little ones. And keep your eye going, don't get tunnel vision, keep your eye going back to that photograph, because that's your model. We like it because it worked. There's something about that that worked, and if you get too far away on your own path, which is fine to a point, but if you get too far from it, you lose whatever it was that drew you to that picture in the first place. You know, a lot of art teachers are going online this week, and I'm on a website with people that are making a living doing art, and I noticed that some of them say they can't talk while they're painting. I do not have that problem. Oh my gosh. Yak, yak, yak. Okay, so here's one that's too thick. I don't like how thick this is. Right here, I'm going to go back in with my sky blue. And I'm going to, it's black, so it does smear. So I'm going to have to push in and break it up. Major repair going on here because the black smears, and this is more yellow and lighter than what I've got going behind it, because we used cornflower blue back there. So I'm going to bring my cornflower blue in. And I'm going to go back and forth till I get it the way I want it, because I really goofed. That's okay. That's why we love pastels. Actually taking a Rembrandt light blue to go in here. It's pretty good. Clean this up. A little bit light, but I can fix that. Fortunately, this is where we want the sunlight to come through. Amazing. So I'm actually going to lighten the sky up here with my sky blue. And I'm going to start cutting in, even though I haven't even done the purple yet. And that's where I want the sun to come. God never leaves you in a mistake. Did you know that? Okay, I won't get religious. We got to have a little faith right now, right? Here we go. All right. We got a lot more trees we're working on here, so it's going to take us a few more minutes. And really, you know how to do that, and I'm going to let you finish your trees on your own time, okay? All right, you got the basics. All right, and Lori, there's a little more basic stuff that I talked about that you'll be able to get. I got a little guy right there walking the beach that I don't think I want him there. Okay. All right, I'm gonna go back to the right side, and I'm gonna finish my shoreline. I'm gonna bring the shore down to the water with my peach. And I'm gonna take that dark red that I liked, and I'm gonna bring that sideways down along here. And again, it's all on a slight slant, very, very slight, not a lot. It gets to be more slanted back here. Now, before we do anything more on the shoreline, let's look at that one big wave. And it's kind of an earthy color with a little bit of green. So we're going to get that earthy color first. We did it before, but we're doing it again because we moved back. We moved our shoreline back, Lori. So all the colors that you're using for your sand are going to go underneath the water. And we're moving our water line back. We're moving it back here. Okay. And, oh no. Excuse me, I went behind mine. Good Lord. There it is. All right. So we're gonna, with the side of our pastel, eyes looking up and look in relation to where the tree is. Okay, you can see it's down just a hair, but not much. And that's where I want it on mine. And then the next one is going to be about here. All right. Okay. And underneath your waves, we always go dark to light. Underneath your waves is going to be some dark color, and you're going to put the white in last. Let's go with a little bit of, let me try it for you. Cornflower blue is not right. Turquoise is too soon. I'm gonna put I think we need some dark before we put the turquoise on. So some dark blue, not a lot. Just on its side, cutting through on that angle, and then down here again. Now let's see, let me try this turquoise again, see if it's ready. Yeah. Now you can put that turquoise in. And you can even use that Kelly green, just a hair, just a touch, that Kelly green, not much. And now, surprise, surprise, a little orange. We'll get there. And that really gives it the look of the dirt, the sand. So while you have that in your hand, you might want to do that up along the other one behind where it's going to be, just a little bit, not much. Okay, we're going to come back and use that orange again. And now you're going to go back and forth until you get the color that you want. I think I'm going to use my turquoise and a little dark pink. Yes, little dark pink at the bottom. Remember, don't worry, we're going to put the light in last. Little dark pink. In fact, that can start to look like the wave itself. And I'm going to use the dark pink along here too. Who would think? Pink. I am the jingle lady. Did she really say that? Okay. Let me try the light blue for you. Light blue for the wave. Yeah, because if we put some white in, that'll be the last thing. Yep. And I'm going to use some white now, just a little bit, very lightly, just a little here and there. There's a little reflection there. And not an even line. You want to break it up. And if it's not broken up enough, you can go back in and break it up with your colors that were there before. Don't get carried away. Do look at the line that you're creating, eyes going back and forth. Where you want it to be whiter, you press harder. Just in a few places. And then also the little wave that's receding on the shoreline. And what you don't like, you take out. Okay, now I've got the orange. Very lightly on a slight angle going towards away from the water. On it, just lightly, lightly, lightly. And a little heavier as you get further away because the beach is, the sand is drier. Okay, but don't go anywhere where there's no purple.